John Krasinski's portrayal of this figure, who has survived in print and on screen for nearly 40 years, has a brand new glittery title in the fourth and final season of Jack Ryan. The crusading analyst who was a field officer is now the Central Intelligence Agency's deputy director. Okay, acting deputy director. As with Elizabeth Wright, Betty Gabriel, Jack's steadfast former boss at the agency's Rome station, who was appointed acting director of the CIA following the disastrous events of last season, there are approaching Senate confirmation hearings to deal with. President Backler, David Badella, labeled the former director, this man Millard, Jonathan Bailey, incompetent when he disavowed Ryan and disregarded his intelligence that indicated missing suitcase nukes and a Russian coup in the making. Their mission is to right the listing ship that is America's leading foreign intelligence service, now that Elizabeth is in charge and Jack is following close behind. And there seems to be a ton of paperwork involved. However, the first episode of Jack Ryan starts 3 weeks in the future, where Jack is discovered to be trussed up in a drippy Myanmar torture chamber, with his captors ready with jumper cables and a car battery. This serves as a reminder that the final 6 episodes of Jack Ryan won't be a slog of bureaucratic bickering and painfully dull staff meetings. Jack, the recently appointed deputy director, is about to receive a shock. Where did he come from? Well, Jack Ryan enjoys seeing the world, and this trip begins in Lagos, Nigeria, when an assault squad breaches the presidential palace and kills the leader of the nation while he is sleeping. Michael Esselhatten, who played Roose Bolton in Game of Thrones, is leading the assassins from afar. He calls Shafa Luizazawa, a casino owner and crime lord in the Shan state of Myanmar, to inform him that their target has been killed. We then return to Washington, D.C., where Backler is being briefed by Elizabeth and Jack in the Oval Office after Chow reports that the Lagos shipping lanes are clear on another phone. Although they were unaware of the attack on the president of Nigeria, it is obvious that agency equipment was used, which presents a challenge for the U.S. in general and Wright and Ryan in particular, whose confirmations are currently being considered by the Senate. They will utilize the fact that you are unaware of the operations your agency is carrying out against you, according to Backler. This season, Michael Pena has also joined the cast of Jack Ryan. When we first meet him, Domingo Chaves is meditating in a church on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. In addition, he is carrying a beautiful box with 2 severed hands that he gives to the Marquez drug gang. The contact Chaves has their claims that those hands are the key to Asia, to pure product, to the Silver Lotus Triad. Once more, all roads, and apparently human appendages, lead back to Chow in Myanmar, who shortly traveled to Mexico to meet with Chaves and the cartel in person. This cooperation aims to regulate the illegal market in the U.S. However, as Cho explains to one of his goons, there are things much bigger than drugs at play. Chow probably wasn't referring to the fact that Chavez appears to be representing more than one viewpoint, if not just his own. Abby Cornish's introduction as infectious disease specialist Dr. Kathy Muller in Season 1 and subsequent disappearance for the length of the series never made any sense in Jack Ryan, which is presumably why her reappearance in Season 4 feels first odd. Over a quiet meal at Jack's flat in Washington, D.C., it becomes clear that he put in some effort to win Kathy back as a love interest. However, it will take more than a few fleeting scenes for Cornish and Krasinski to develop some on-screen chemistry, the type of chemistry that makes Wendell Pierce's return as James Greer more exciting right away. He's not getting any younger, so Jack's long-standing CIA mentor and reliable ally in the field is trying to work a little less and mend the rift between himself, his ex-wife, and his 2 teenage children. He's currently flirting with the private sector. Prior seasons of Jack Ryan didn't focus on Greer's personal life either, but for its last season, the show is unmistakably emphasizing what's personally at stake for these seasoned agency fighters as they confront another new international threat. Jack states at a private meeting of the Senate Intelligence Committee that the CIA is a perfect microcosm of the American people, which implies that we are in risk of being divided, more readily subject to outside influence from both domestic and foreign interests. We already know that some of those extracurricular activities will eventually capture Jack in their cruel, jumper cable-obsessed grasps. But it's also becoming obvious how crucial the Yucatan and Lagos clashes are to the agency. Jack has retrieved 9 different CIA missions from former Director Miller's archives, with Greer's assistance that have no other confirmed existence. He and Wright decide to immediately discontinue any black bag operations that are redacted and off the record. They might be able to identify the players if they stop the money. And because of this, when Chavez materializes out of nowhere and strikes Jack in the head with a gun after a night out with Kathy, Jack doesn't exactly act astonished. "Restart Pluto, please. You have a full day." There's a warning from a third party, I guess. He at least spared Jack's hands from being severed. In the second episode, Convergence, Jack learns more about Chaves while he investigates Miller's shady business practices. Chow must negotiate the turmoil in the complex to protect his family when he returns to Myanmar. Jack obtained a Project Pluto personnel file by using a reliable analysis. His interest was sparked by Domingo Chavez. Jack and Chaves met. Jack revealed the agent and informed him that there was no more money for the operation. Thomas Miller, a former CIA director, has previously approved Chavez's operations. Chavez was requested to assist Jack. In the meantime, Cheo and his son traveled back to Myanmar to inform Tin Tun of the Mexican disaster. He's no longer under Tin Tun's command. Kao went back to his family, persuading his daughter that they never attempted to flee. Cho then went to see Dr. Thong to confirm the story. Chow wanted the Triad to remain in the dark about his intention to abandon the lethal faction. The Triad's next directive to Chow was to go to Miller to get information about the mission's setbacks. Domingo Chaves was employed as a hitman by the cartel to kill competing cartel leaders, as Jack discovered. Additionally, he discovered Cha Fa's involvement in Project Pluto. Someone in Washington, D.C. was in the Triad's wallets, and they were in control of the operation. Thomas Miller was that person. On Jack's behalf, James Greer met with Thomas Miller. Following the announcement of Project Pluto, Miller ended the meeting. Miller vowed to pin the incident on Ryan and Greer. Miller called Bill Tuttle and told him about the two examining Project Pluto. Miller called Cheo and informed him that Chavez had gone missing. Miller was given a warning by Cheo to restart Project Pluto. Miller was shocked to realize Chavez had been listening in on the talk while hiding in the room. Regarding the deaths of 7 of his guys who were involved in Miller's actions, Chaves addressed Miller. He gave him the boot if he didn't reveal his questionable dealings with Jack Ryan. Jack called Mike November, played by Michael Kelly, asking for assistance. Jack gave Elizabeth the information, and together they briefed the president. He was informed that Miller was useful to the Triad, who had just teamed up with the Mexican cartel to transport cocaine. Additionally, the triumvirate intended to transport something much worse than narcotics. Convergence enables the spread of terrorism. The cartel could smuggle people, weapons, and bombs into the United States thanks to their access to the country. In order to stop the threat of terrorism, President Backler was compelled to give Jack permission to influence Miller and use Chow as leverage. Director Wright was instructed by President Backler to visit Nigeria and speak with the new president in order to ease tensions about the U.S. role in President Udo's demise. Adebayo Adesoji, played by Okirid Onadaon, was invited to travel with Wright to Lagos. We then went to a Senate session that was broadcast on television to defend the new CIA administration. Unfortunately, she is unaware of how extensive the corruption under her leadership has been. Jack agreed to a meeting with Miller that evening. Chaves was invited, but he declined, resisting the impulse to murder Miller before learning the crucial information Jack so sorely needed. Jack was asked by Miller to restart Project Pluto, but he declined. Jack dug deeper and discovered that the American government was actually run by commercial interests. Greer assisted Jack in recording the conversation covertly. Chaves called Jack to intervene on Miller's behalf as he ran away. Miller tried to get away when he arrived home, but Bill Tuttle restrained him and drugged him by forcing pills and wine down his mouth. Thomas Miller was killed by the time Chaves arrived. Ryan and Greer were informed Chaves had come too late. Chaves warned them he was the target after them.